Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Brief, the show where me and QnA catch up every 2 weeks to talk about Bitcoin, privacy, open source, keeping your Bitcoin secure, and the news and software updates that matter. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been supporting Ungovernable Misfits, and a big thank you to Foundation Devices for supporting the show. If you haven't already checked them out, go to foundation.xyz. They make cypherpunk tools for fuckwits, and anyone can use this, even me. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, feel free and I'll be happy to go through things with you. For anything super technical, I'll pass you on to Q. If you want to buy one of these incredible passports, use the code ungovernable. It will get you a discount and it will let them know that I'm shilling. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to the Cake Wallet team. Not only are they supporting this show, but they're also bringing out some incredible features. For those of you who actually use Bitcoin and actually care about their privacy and security, Cake Wallet make it incredibly simple for you to live outside of the traditional financial system. You can use Cake Pay within the app to buy gift cards for food, petrol, and whatever else you might need day to day. You can use silent payments, and of course, you can use Monero. You can connect both Bitcoin and Monero nodes, use coin control, and this team are constantly innovating, and I'm really excited to be working with them. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, but check them out at cakewallet.com, download the APK, or start using this today on Mac, Windows, Linux, iPhone, or of course your Android device. Enjoy the show. Morning, mate. How are we doing?
Good morning. I am doing well. I am proud to announce I have survived the sickness and diarrhea bug that has been ripping through the QnA family for the past nearly 2 weeks now.
Wow.
Wife and I have been like the only two from the kind of immediate family that haven't been glued to the toilet for at least 24 hours. Pretty proud to have fought that one off so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm touching wood here, but yeah, sadly little one was struck down with it last week, and not very nice to see them in a bad way. So but thankful that I didn't get it myself, really, because it looked pretty fucking horrendous.
Yeah, it's never good. It's when it's the combo, the shitting and the vomiting come together. That's when it really all goes wrong.
Yeah.
The upside, not for a little one, but the upside I always find if I've shat myself or vomited violently for a couple of days is I go, I'm a little bit less fat. It's always that little like, that's done me wonders there.
Yeah, in a weird way, like you feel somewhat cleansed, don't you?
Exactly. There's nothing left in you, good or bad. It's just all gone.
Yeah, indeed. Like you've flushed out all the toxins. Well, that was a lovely way to start the show, wasn't it? Talking immediately about diarrhea and being sick. Welcome, listeners.
It's a parallel to what's going on Bitcoin Twitter. There's vomit and diarrhea everywhere I look. So in a way, what we just talked about is much cleaner.
True. Yeah. If you're in the market for looking at millions and millions of price charts, then Bitcoin Twitter is your place right now. How's the carnivore update going, mate? Are you still sticking to it? Are you thin now? What's the latest?
Yeah, I am still sticking to it. I had 1 or 2 times where I've had like a tiny bit of sauce with what I've had, like dipped a little bit of meat in a bit of sauce. But other than that, it's been extremely strict. Literally just water, black coffee, meat, eggs. And yeah, I have lost 10 kilos this year.
Kilos?
Kilograms, so like
Jesus
20
Christ.
something pounds.
I was just going to say you're going to need to convert that for those over the pond.
Yeah, whatever
how
it
many
is,
pounds?
like £22.
£20? Jesus.
I don't know. I have to do the. Let me just see.
You're gonna need a new wardrobe.
Kilogram to. I do, because I couldn't fit in any of the ungovernable misfits medium stuff at all. Just couldn't do it. And now, let's do it this way. And now I can, like, comfortably. 20 kilos. No, I'm not doing 20. I did 10. You fucking idiot. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, 10 kilos is 22.04623 pounds.
And when did you start? January the 1st?
January the 1st, yeah.
That's more than £1 a day.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, like a lot
shit.
of that will probably be water retention.
Yeah.
Like a fair amount of that will be water retention. And then also, like, I was a chubby cunt. So, you know, I did like all this bulking for ages. I won't dox the numbers, but I put on quite a lot basically over like 6-month period. And then I was just like looking in the mirror and I was like, you are a fucking disgrace. Like, you need to like, you as a side profile is an embarrassment. So I just thought, no, let's go all in here. It certainly worked. I could probably do with losing it slightly more, like maybe another 5 kilos, and then I'd be like in that kind of like shirt off, looking ripped, like looking good phase, rather than the disgusting, sloppy mess.
Well done, mate. That's a significant weight loss in a very, very short space of time. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, thank you. It's starvation.
That's essentially what it is, yeah. And that's exactly why I will never, ever do it. I did chuckle when I was listening. I started listening to the podcast with Mr Gunn last night. Mm-hmm. Only got about 20 minutes in, but...
That's more than enough.
Yeah, was tickled by the fact that you got there immediately. He found out like that you're doing all this weight loss stuff and carnivore stuff, and then marched you up a mountain.
Yeah, he's what a strange guy. Quite a trip.
I look forward to listening to the rest of it. It was quite a long one, I think. From I looked at the timestamps. Is it a 2-hour rip?
No. Normally it's very long. The last ones we've done are very long, but this, I think we kept it to about an hour and 10.
Nice. Well, we've had quite a lot of new listeners in the past sort of 6 months. A lot of people might not know who or what the hell we're talking about. If you're in that camp, I would urge you strongly to go back through the feed and search for Ben Gunn with 2 N's. This was his 3rd podcast, is it?
Yeah, we did. You Can't Eat Sats was the first one. That was in like maybe 2020. Then we did You Can't Live in a Bitcoin. That was like 2 years ago. And then we've just recorded just now. So it's the 3rd. Yeah,
so to go back to my urging of the listeners, if you've not heard those first 2 shows, well, all 3, please go back and listen to them. They're one of my favourites in the whole back catalogue of Ungovernable Misfits. Ben has some very interesting takes on life, and he's a very interesting individual to hear wax lyrical about, well, pretty much anything. So, yeah, well worth your time.
Yeah, agreed. One of the worst blokes you'll ever meet, but also one of the best. He's a very strange but brilliant individual. We're lucky to have him, and we're also gutted to have him because he's fucking annoying. Honestly, like, I came home and I was just like, kids are screaming, everything's going off, like carnage at home because I was away for 2 days. I come back and I was like, oh, this is peaceful.
Hi, Ben, if you're listening.
Yeah, hi, Ben.
Other news, John will be very excited to hear that I have now got another BitAxe. This is to replace the one that I almost set on fire by plugging in the wrong power cable to. So, but this is one of the new ones. I forget the names of them. To be honest, I don't really like the naming structure that they use, but whatever it is, it's like the powerful one that does like over a terahash. So, yeah, nice. Doubling my chances of never earning a sat.
Have you got it in some sort of cooling system or special case or anything like that? Have you got all nerdy with it?
Well, it came with a 3D printed case and it's just sat on a shelf behind me. So, nice. But yeah, nothing fancy. Just sits there and hashes away and buys me some lottery tickets every few seconds.
Very nice. Have you seen the image I just sent you on Telegram?
I am opening Telegram right now.
Grumpy old bastard who has received for Christmas a BitAxe from Altair, and you can just see how pleased he is with that.
He looks absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, Barnminer keeps that on his fridge now because he just thinks it's so nice.
A strong beard. That is a very strong
Yeah,
beard.
It's a great beard.
Nice work.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm sad that we can't put that in the show notes for obvious reasons, but
No, we can't.
nah, maybe not. Maybe not.
No, we can't do that one.
In other news, I have found another rabbit hole, mate, and it's one that I almost instantly regret going down.
Oh no. Tell me.
It's the smart home rabbit hole. More specifically, the open source, locally hosted smart home rabbit hole.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, baby. It's got me by the balls in a big, big way. Before I got into all this Bitcoin stuff and privacy stuff and things like that, I think I've told this many times on different podcasts, so I'll keep it brief. But I was that guy with like the Philips Hue light bulbs and the Nest thermostat and the Google Ring Bell door, whatever it's called, all that sort of stuff. That's all kind of like adding Google surveillance to your home in a very nice way that the police can probably just see whatever you're doing whenever you want. Quickly realized when I went down the privacy rabbit hole that was a terrible idea and ripped it all out. And I've never had anything smart in my home since. But then I don't actually know what triggered it. I think it was probably the YouTube algorithm or something like that. I found out about this open source piece of software that is used to kind of be the hub for all of your IoT or smart home devices. And it's called Home Assistant. So you can look at it as like, I don't know, Start 9, but for your house type thing. So it's an open source platform and it allows you to, well, the sky's the limit as to what this thing can do. It's the only limit is kind of your imagination and obviously what physical devices you have. So did a bit of research and went in thinking, okay, well, I've got a couple of prerequisites here that if I'm going to do this, I'll only buy something and add it to my kind of smart home stack if it meets these criteria. Number one, it doesn't cost the earth because it's not going to be a cheap thing to kit the whole house out. And number two, it has to be compatible with Home Assistant and be available only locally. So it doesn't phone home to Google or to Amazon or whatever to be able to function. So yeah, I'm in the midst of building out like my own, I guess, smart home that all works locally, but crucially that I can access remotely through like Zero Tier or Tailscale or something like that, so that if I realize that I've not turned the lights off and I've flown to Germany or something like that, and I'm not like, oh shit, I can still tap in remotely without having to rely on somebody else's server.
Dial in and just check to see if your milk is going to be out of date when you come home with your little camera that's built into the fridge.
Oh, I don't think I'll be going that far. Those things
so
are
nerdy.
Fucking expensive. It's incredibly nerdy. Like, yeah, I'm definitely flexing my nerd muscles with this one, but yeah, I'm open and honest. It's gripped me by the bollocks, and I'm probably going to get into a marital row about it at some point in the future.
I feel partly responsible for this because I think this might have not been an algorithm. It might be when we were talking, I think last episode, about like smart lighting, like Philips Hue lighting.
It was you bastard.
Yeah, and you were like, yeah, I used to be really into it and blah, blah, blah. But then obviously privacy concerns, and I think that's probably like sparked it and it's somewhere lurking in the back of your head and that's pulled you back in. So sorry about that. But also there probably is some really useful shit that you could do. There's like nerdy stuff like the fridge thing, which is just like, oh, fucking hell. Just if something goes out of date, it goes out of date. Just don't be such a prick.
Yeah.
But other stuff is, like the heating one, for example, is quite nice. Like
absolutely,
if you can control your heating and say, oh, we thought we were going to be back home, but now we've extended our stay for 2-3 days. Well, you don't need to whack the heating right up again. It can just be a temperature that stops there being mold or problems. You know, you just keep it at a low temperature. Things like that is quite useful. Or lights. Like I like the idea of having lights if you're away that change. It's not no lights for a week and then someone keeps going past and going, car hasn't moved, lights haven't changed, maybe we can rob this. If there's things happening, it looks like, oh, the TV's gone on, that's gone on, whatever. If you can sort of program something to look as though there's someone home, that's quite good for security.
Yeah, definitely. I've got it linked to my security cameras now that if they detect any human motion after a certain time, like it'll flick a couple of lights on in the house. That sort of stuff is very, very useful. Another prime example, my little one won't go to the toilet on her own if it's dark in there, but she's too small to reach the pull cord to turn the bathroom light on. Well, now she doesn't need to because there's a little motion sensor in there. So I don't have to pick my ass up off the sofa to take her to the toilet now because she can just go in and know full well that the light turned itself on.
Wow. I like it. There's worse things to get into. If you'd said to me, yeah, I've really got into gambling again. I just absolutely. I'd be like, probably advise you don't do that, mate.
Yes.
But this is quite cool.
Yeah, it could be worse. I could be like a crack addict or something, couldn't I?
I would say that's worse. Yeah, I would say that's worse.
Shall we hit the news?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, I included this first one not because I'm particularly excited about it or even that I really want to talk about it all that much, but mainly because I want your take on it and your thoughts around this. The US in general, but there are some specific states, seem to be going bonkers about strategic Bitcoin reserves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been various different proposals, some at the national level and some at the state level. To date, Pennsylvania, Texas, Ohio, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Massachusetts have all put forward, key point being put forward, these are not being enacted, strategic Bitcoin reserve bills where basically they're saying that they're going to kind of hoard some Bitcoin as a savings vehicle, essentially. It's just interesting to me because obviously on Bitcoin Twitter, there's unbounded amounts of excitement about this, that people, the government's going to pump our bags and stuff like that. And obviously I know that that's not going to be your, it's not going to excite you, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on it to see if you have any interesting takes, whether you think it's good, bad, indifferent. What's your take?
Hard to know, really. Like, it's been such a long time since I've really looked at the like financy stuff. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like chart bro stuff where I used to be much more interested. So I haven't given it that much thought. I guess my take would be don't pay attention to any of this until anything actually happens, because you can put all these proposals forward and say you're going to do this and that. And then, as we know, things don't go as planned or like people say. A perfect example is, oh my God, when Trump gets in, like he gets it and like free market and blah, and all this stuff like you see everywhere and you're like, he's a politician. Like, then you have this fucking, whatever it is, Trump with a $ coin thing.
Oh, yeah.
Being pumped and like all this. Again, I haven't paid that much attention, but you can't help but see it if you go on Twitter with that little gremlin crypto guy, like loudmouth little cunt, just like there at the thing. And I was just like, this is exactly the reason I don't pay attention, is because like, one side of your mouth is like, Bitcoin strategic reserve. Yeah, they get it. And it's like, or maybe they don't because they're doing this sort of stupidity. I don't know. With a Bitcoin reserve, I think, let's see if it happens or not, first of all. And if it does, kind of indifferent. I'm like, yeah, it would make a difference to the price, which I've got some bills to pay. Like I need to sell some Bitcoin anyway, so I'd rather sell it at more than less. Like, that's pretty obvious. So I don't mind if that happens, but how do they do it? Is it going to be seized funds? Is it going to be that they start to accumulate and then they realize, oh, we want more of this, so they start taxing it harder? Do they bring in unrealized gains? Do they try and 6102 it? Do they try and mine it themselves and take more and more of the hash rate? And that becomes a problem. There are like, it's a double-edged sword. I don't know what to make of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this was always going to happen. We've talked about this for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Governments around the world are going to be like, this is quite a useful thing. It's quite good. We'd like some. And the way that they go about that is yet to be seen. But I think at some point, most governments are going to be either doing it in a way that they don't disclose or out in the open. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think, again, I think double-edged sword, like you said, perfectly sums it up. It pains me to say it, but the talking heads on Twitter were right in the fact when they've been saying for years, look, Bitcoin plays into like human greed and governments are populated by humans, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess it's not surprising that, there's slowly senators or whoever it is, if there's been a couple of Bitcoiners come into that fold, and they clearly want to kind of, I guess, pump their own personal bags, and the vehicle that they have to do that is by putting forward bills like this. So I guess it shouldn't be surprising. And yeah, again, we all use Bitcoin as a savings vehicle. So, if nobody's going to moan if the price goes up, but at what cost? Like, what are the risks here? And these are all unknowns, but all of the stuff that you just mentioned, do they see it as something that they want to get more of? And they think, well, taking it off the citizens is an easier way to do that, or taxing it from the citizens in such a way that there is no uproar or there's less uproar, as governments have a habit of doing. It just makes me very uncomfortable when governments start to get their grubby little mitts further and further into this sort of stuff. It just... I don't know. Clearly, I'm never going to do anything to stop it. And, it's not for me to say how other people can use their Bitcoin, whether they're a governor or a homeless man on the street. I don't know. It
doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
It
it just
dirty.
makes me uneasy. It makes me uneasy is probably the best way to sum it up.
They're going to pump everyone's bags. Outside of that, there's not likely much good that's going to come from it. Like, how often does the government get involved in something you do or care about and that thing gets better? I can't think of an example where that's ever happened in my life where I've gone, oh, that's great. I'm really glad the government has got involved in this thing. Just if you look at it like that, I'd rather them not. But was it going to happen? Yeah, it always seemed kind of inevitable. Maybe I thought it would take a bit longer. Is it going to pump everyone's bags? Yeah, probably. But am I worried about how they're going to attain it? Yeah, I am. They do have the ability to sort of just effectively buy this without taxing anyone or doing anything. They can just print and hold it. I guess that would be the easiest thing to do and not have the uproar from citizens, is like just print and hold as much as you can and try and regain some power would be the easiest thing. And then once you've done that, then you come after everyone else.
Yeah.
I don't
Interesting.
know.
We'll see whether any of those bills actually get passed.
Yeah, exactly.
What again makes me wary, is there's a lot of people that seem very confident that this is a foregone conclusion, even at the national level, where it's like it's going to be a presidential order or whatever, that it's going to happen. And I'm like, I'm not so sure. Speaking of presidential actions, it's day one of Trump's tenancy today. Does Ross go free today, as promised?
Oh, I fucking hope so. I don't have, what's the word? I'm not sure. I was going to say I don't have much hope, but that's not true. I just put it as like 50-50. I just don't know. I really, really hope so, because it is just such a waste of life having him locked in a cell for effectively doing fuck all. He's been in there since he was a young man, and it's just heartbreaking to know that he's got family on the outside missing him and working as hard as they have for as long as they have to get him out. So I really hope he walks free. And then I really hope that when he walks free, the Bitcoin world leaves him alone.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, like if you're listening to this and like you think it would be cool to like get an article from him or a pod from him or follow them around and badger people and message them, seriously, you need to fuck off. This guy needs to have a long time just with his loved ones and try and recover from what's gone on, because I don't think any of us, or many of us, could even imagine what it is like to go through what he's gone through. So please fucking leave him alone.
Yeah, co-sign that. And do I think he's going to walk free today, free him on day one as promised? No. Do I hope that I'm wrong in saying that? Yes, with every ounce of my being. I do think I don't know why, I'm not basing this on anything, it's just a hunch, but I still think there's a more than 50% chance that he does walk free eventually. But whether that's going to happen, even in the first week of Trump coming into office, I don't know. Governments just move very, very slowly. So I just don't think it's going to be that quick.
No.
But, I guess a week in the grand scheme of the 11 plus years he's been incarcerated is, still a week too much, but
yeah,
if he walked free, that's the main thing.
We're a hell of a lot further and closer than I thought we'd ever be. Like, honestly, I remember like having conversations about it because we had done the Ungovernable Misfits clothing and donated the profits to Free Ross, and we were talking about it, and I was like, as much as we care about this and we want to try and help if there's a chance, I was like, honestly, I put the chances at like 1%. Like I really thought like it's very unlikely that anything ever happens and he ever walks free, as sad as that is. But like you say, if it's 50-50, we're a lot better than we were. And so that's at least a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. We can hope. We'll keep you updated, of course. Okay, next news article. Our good friends over at Coinbase have introduced a new on-chain reputation service. Coinbase,
Excellent.
yeah, I mean, nobody should be surprised by who's behind this, the snakes over at Coinbase. But yeah, the Coinbase developer platform's on-chain reputation service enables you to pass a wallet address, ENS, I presume that's Ethereum name something, base name, and receive a score between -100 and +100, providing directional indication of its on-chain reputation alongside useful metadata informing the reputation score. You would see a score of 0 for a brand new wallet with 0 transaction history. So basically, they're giving wallet addresses scores so that fellow, I guess, wallet developers that are going to integrate this, which I'm sure there will be many, sadly, can tick a regulatory box to say, yeah, look what we're doing. We're chain surveilling our customers and applying often incorrect information to our customers' addresses such that we can be prejudiced against them and prevent them from having services or using our services. So, yeah, it's again shouldn't be a surprise to see, but just one of the many reasons why you should not touch Coinbase with a shitty stick.
I'm a bit confused there. When you say you get a reputation score for a wallet or wallet address, do you mean as in a wallet project, or do you mean they're kind of saying what we want to see is as much address reuse as possible for you to gain a score greater than 0, because a new address that hasn't previously been used has a score of 0, but if you've been using the same address and reusing it for years and years, and we've been able to build a profile on you where those sats are coming in from, where they're going out to, and we can link them to other businesses that are part of our little surveillance system, then you're going to have a better score. And then the other thing that I'm confused about is, what's the score for? Is this for some type of lending or banking relationship thing? Because otherwise, what's the point in the score if it's not like a sort of a credit score?
Yeah, it is kind of like a social credit score for every single address within your wallet. So basically, Coinbase have got their own in-house chain analysis that is monitoring the blockchain. Any addresses that they see that interact with a product or service address that they don't like, let's say a CoinJoin service, and my guess is that would give you a negative score. So who is this for? This is for Coinbase first and foremost, but it's also going to be a product that they're going to sell to other wallets or presumably exchange implementations as well, such that they can, let's say you go to Exchange X and Exchange X is a customer of Coinbase using this bullshit reputation service. They'll say, okay, Max has just deposited from address XYZ. What's the score of this address? And if it's less than a threshold, they'll just turn around and tell you to fuck off and say, no, you're not. We're not doing business with you.
Okay. Well, that sounds terrible, but not surprising.
Yeah, indeed. In addition to the score, the on-chain reputation service also returns the following metadata, which summarizes on-chain activity: total number of transactions, unique days active, longest active streak, current active streak, activity period, token swaps performed, bridge transactions performed, lend, borrow, stake transactions performed, smart contract deployments. So it's everything. Anything you do on chain with a specific address, Coinbase is attempting to monitor it and giving you a score based on what you have and haven't done.
Yes. Okay. It makes sense why they want to do that, obviously, but stay the fuck away from it. I don't think many people who listen to this show would be interacting in that way or probably, hopefully, using Coinbase anymore. But if you're new here, think very carefully about it. And then once you've finished thinking very carefully about it, just never, ever do it, despite what you think.
Yes, indeed. Sticking with the Coinbase theme, they have recently also announced Bitcoin-backed loans. And I say Bitcoin-backed loans in some very, very, very obvious air quotes. The reason for that is that they're not really backed by Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. They are collateralized by CBBTC, Coinbase's Bitcoin-wrapped product, which, as you could probably guess, doesn't run as a layer on the Bitcoin network. It's a centralized token that's probably aimed to be a kind of competitor to the other wrap Bitcoin, which I believe lives on the Ethereum blockchain.
Yeah.
They're also doing this on their own blockchain, which is called Base, which I didn't even know existed. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into the details, but if you see this product and think, oh great, I can get a Bitcoin backed loan from a tax advantage perspective, I understand that aspect. But if you're going to do it, just don't do it with Coinbase, because it's not actually backed by Bitcoin. And the fact that they're allowed to get away with calling it that is a bit of a travesty, to be honest with you.
You can see the allure though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying don't get a Bitcoin backed loan. I'm just saying be very careful where you do it, and definitely don't do it with Coinbase.
Because what will happen is, I haven't looked into this, but my assumption is Coinbase will have much better rates than a lot of the competitors where, you have like a multi-sig where you can actually see that the funds aren't moving and blah, 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 like an Unchained, or there's other friends of mine have used it before where there's like, I think there's one in Germany. There's a few different ones, but the rates are always pretty terrible from what I've seen.
Yep.
I've been like, well, I just don't see the point in doing that. But once they come to more of a competitive rate, then you could understand being like, I don't want to sell, but like I actually have a life that I need to live and there's stuff that I need to pay for. And so in theory, if they're thinking about it, they'd be like, oh yeah, well, it's safer to have it with Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin backed and da-da-da. And you can see it. It's just, will we ever be in a situation where that's possible to do safely with competitive rates? I don't see it happening for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the rates will come down as more and more companies come into the space. Naturally, you'll get that competition, which will drive the rates down and make everything more competitive. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon because of, various reasons. Number one, how many companies are going to be able to offer this? Number two, like regulatory uncertainty, all that sort of stuff that is just going to be preventing it from becoming much more of a commodity kind of service that's offered and making it more palatable, especially when you compare it to if you want to go and get a loan from a bank. I don't know. I don't even know what the rates are. Probably like 6%, is it at the moment?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I get it. Yeah. Some Bitcoiners might have terrible credit history and this is the only way they can get some credit, maybe.
Or none. Like, I don't know how many people are actually doing this, but you see like, I've been fully living on Bitcoin for X amount of years. I earn my income in it. Okay. In terms of like the fiat system, your rank is 0. You have no income. Mm-hmm. You might not own a property, especially if you're dotting around the world. They're not going to lend you money. If you're like, I want to buy a car, I want to invest in something. It's like, can I borrow some money? They're like, absolutely fucking not. Like 0 there's no chance I'll lend you money at any rate you can. This is another option for them where it's like, okay, they could actually get a loan in this way. But the other thing is you have all the liquidation risk.
Oh, yeah.
A good friend of mine had that not too long ago. It wiped like a decent amount of his stack out. And not because he wasn't aware of it. I think he'd done it so he thought like, this was like safe enough to put this amount in. I've got a little bit more that I could chuck in, but I have to do that manually. And he tried to set some alert on the price, and then either he didn't have his phone or didn't have signal, and it wicked down hard over like a 10-hour period, and he like lost the vast majority of it. So this is the kind of stuff where it's like, nah, it's just not for me.
Yeah, like I have no desire to do this anytime in the near future, but I always told myself, like when I did a little bit of research, I was like, for that exact reason of the scenario you just said, I don't think I'd ever even consider getting a loan for any more than like 10% of my Bitcoin holdings, something like that. That even if the worst were to happen, like I'd be significantly fucked off, but like it's not going to change my life in the long term. Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah, just be careful, folks. It can be an alluring prospect, especially from a tax advantage perspective when you need access to fiat. But yeah, okay. The U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, is getting sued, which is nice to hear. Michael Llewellyn, a Dallas-based cryptocurrency entrepreneur and Coin Center fellow, has filed a constitutional challenge against the DOJ for over-criminalization of software development under the Biden administration. Well, I don't think that that's a stretch to say that it was over-criminalized during the last the tenure of Mr. Biden and his DOJ. So it's nice to see that somebody with a bit of, clearly a big set of balls and hopefully a big bank account behind him to take him to task. Yeah, Michael Llewellyn has requested that the Texas federal court affirm the legality of his crypto startup and prevent the DOJ from prosecuting him. I don't know what he does, but if he wins, it could have positive impacts on like the Samurai case, the Roman Storm case, in theory. Here we go. Llewellyn's lawsuit makes 3 key claims. The DOJ does not have the statutory authority to prosecute an individual for operating a, quote, money transmitting business if they merely create software tools for cryptocurrency. Nice. That's definitely got impact on all of the other cases. If the DOJ's position were permitted under the statute, it would violate the First Amendment. I'm not American enough to know or pass comment on that. And if the DOJ's position were accepted under the statute, it would violate due process. Again, I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's just nice to see somebody pushing back. First I've ever heard of this guy, but whoever you are, Michael Llewellyn, like I take my hat off to you. Oh, here we go. There's a quote from one of his tweets. He runs something called Pharos, a non-custodial protocol for public goods fundraising. Okay. My guess is that's probably run on Ethereum or something like that because I've never heard of it. But yeah,
probably.
Fair play to him.
Regardless, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, more DOJ news. They have got court approval to sell 69,370 Bitcoin that was seized from the Silk Road. I think there's something like, I don't want to say poetic, but there's something strange about the timing of this, right?
I know. I was just thinking that.
You've got Biden administration about to disappear, Trump coming in, and Ross potentially getting a pardon. And now the DOJ has got court approval just before all that happens to flog the best part of 70,000 Bitcoin.
It is interesting timing. Are they trying to sell that before he comes in as like a little bit of spite?
Yeah, a fuck you. Yeah, that's the way I see it. They probably got wind of all of this potential strategic reserve stuff, and they're like, okay, well, you're going to have to start from scratch because we're going to flog these 70K.
It's never going to happen, like 0% chance. But wouldn't it be nice if that didn't actually happen for whatever reason, and then Trump came in, and then Trump goes, listen, Ross, we really fucked up. We can't repay the debt, but I'd like to give you 10% from the Silk Road and pay you this as an apology to you and your family. And the rest we're going to keep and blah, blah, blah. And like that was the way that they accumulated rather than like selling that and maybe or maybe not releasing him. It could be a lovely little like, we're sorry we're such cunts. We're trying to apologize.
I mean, it's a nice fairy tale. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Never going to happen. No, never. Never.
It would be wonderful if it did. Don't get me wrong.
It would just be nice. It would just...
Yeah, it really would. It would be incredible. But I don't want to turn this into US politics podcast. But do you know what's strange to me, right? And there's probably an honest answer to this or an easy answer to this, right? But the US election finished, what? Was it November or early December? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
So we knew what was happening. Trump was coming in and Biden was leaving. That basically gives Biden and his administration like a couple of months a month or two to basically just do loads of reckless shit knowing that they're not going to have to pick up the pieces. Like, how is that even allowed to happen? Like, surely if the people have voted and they say, no, we want this guy and his party in, like that should happen straight away because it just opens the door for reckless shit like this. I guess it probably comes back to the fact of like governments are massive, entities that move incredibly slowly. And I guess things have got to be put in place. But purely from a, I guess, lawmaking and reckless decision-making perspective, you'd think that the new administration would be the ones that had that power immediately. And then you could do your transfer of all of the other boring shit from there, maybe.
Obviously, the incentive is to make the next people that come in look really bad. So they're so bad that you actually looked okay in comparison. Yeah. And then that gives your party a chance the next time round to come in again. So yeah, they definitely would want to fuck things up. You'd need to have like a sort of, it's only ever going to be two parties. So you'd have to have like party A, who's currently in, be shadowed by party B. You'd have to have like a little minion looking over like some of the stuff that's happening for like a handover to be able to be possible on the day whoever wins or loses. So it's like, okay, we win. Everything is already sort of handed over because we've had someone shadowing you. It's done. Get the fuck out of the office. But, it's government. So what do you expect?
Indeed. We're actually flying back over the pond now for some UK news. This is a story, probably one of the earliest like Bitcoin news stories I ever heard of when I first got into Bitcoin back in like between 17 and 19, that sort of era. A chap called James Howells, who is 39, lives in Newport, South Wales, has been suing or attempting to work with the local council because he claims that in 2013 he threw out his hard drive that contains 600 million in Bitcoin. That was back in the days where hardware wallets didn't exist and you had like a private key from probably Bitcoin Core stored on your computer or your hard drive in this case. He's been fighting to be able to like go and look for that for, well, essentially since 2013. Forever. It's been dragging on and he's been having court battles and stuff like that. And essentially the judge has now halted his attempt and just said, no, the likelihood that the quote is, you have no realistic prospect of succeeding. So it's basically just been put to bed to say that, it's over, mate.
Yeah, what a weird story. As far as I understand it, it was like he was mining very, very early. And then I think his missus at the time was like, oh, it's really noisy and annoying. Rah, rah, rah. And then so he stopped it and then thought he'd kept the hard drive. He thought he was chucking an old one that he didn't need anymore, but it was actually that one. And then he's been searching through the tip ever since, or attempting to search through the tip ever since. But my thought on it is like, even if he did find it, surely it's fucked by now. Like if it's like it's going to be an old school disk type hard drive, isn't it? So it's not going to be SSD. Like almost certainly it's not going to be SSD. It's going to be that old type, like metal casing, and then it's in a tip for like 10 years being rained on. I mean, like it rains constantly there, being rained on with shit all on the top and chemicals and bullshit, whatever goes into that tip. Even if you did find it, I don't know what the likelihood is that you'd actually pull that private key off.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, you do have like forensic or digital like forensics that are able to, attempt to do this sort of stuff. But I think the likelihood will be very low.
Rusted and...
Yeah, it's going to be fucked, isn't it?
And the other thing I'm thinking is there actually any proof that he sent funds to that address? Like, is there anything that you can look at to be like, oh yeah, you did actually do that? Because otherwise it could be, for example, like, can we look on chain to go, yeah, there's the amount of Bitcoin that he said he sent to that address from this address, and it hasn't moved since that date. Because otherwise it could be like a Craig Wright, or it could just be someone who's just like gone down the pub and be like, oh yeah, that Bitcoin stuff, yeah, I fucking mined loads of it, mate, but I threw it out. Just that sort of stupid pub story that people will come out with.
I'm going to guess, there's probably no proof of that, because this news article signs off by saying Howells, which is the guy in question, has speculated that by next year, the Bitcoins on his hard drive could be worth 1 billion. So there's no hard numbers here. Like, surely if you knew what was on that hard drive, it'd be like, okay, I've got 8,000 Bitcoin on that hard drive, but he's just speculating that it might be worth 1 billion next year.
Yeah.
So it seems a bit woolly. With that said, like, he's clearly plowed thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds into legal pursuits to try and get access to this. Yeah. But I guess, as we've seen with Craig Wright, that doesn't always mean that you're telling the truth.
Certainly not.
Sadly, we've also started the year with many crypto kidnappings. France, Canada, Thailand, and Pakistan, to name but a few. Full details will be in the show notes, of course. But again, I just like to throw these in from time to time to remind people that the fewer people that know that you have Bitcoin, the better. There's some really horrible stories here. One of them was tied up and covered in petrol and threatened to, send funds. Another one kidnapped him and started to torture him. Another one had to go into hiding because they tried to break into his home where his family were. So he's moved house and had to go into hiding. And then a final one. Where was this one? Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, this one, they got $340,000 out of him.
Jesus Christ.
And he sent that through his Binance account after
God.
being held hostage. So, never a nice thing to read, but, a stark reminder that just be as private as you can.
And also care about your security. Obviously, you can be as private as you can. The problem is, maybe it's less so now. Like, if someone's new and they're listening to this show, they might be like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. You're like, maybe I should shut the fuck up. But especially when you're new, the way I experienced it was you just want to talk to everyone about this thing because you're like,
Yeah.
am I mental? I don't think I am. I want to talk to people. I want to see their opinions. I want to like see if I'm in some sort of weird bubble. So you want to talk about it. You're obsessed with it. So you can't help but tell some people in that kind of like when you're in that state. So that's difficult. And then you can't go back. And then you have all the leaks and all that kind of stuff. So for most people listening to this, they're like, yeah, I wish I'd been more private. And like some people know, and there's probably a bit of data leaked here and there. And then the next question is, what do you do about that? Because there's all these different tactics that people have. And I know it's a personal thing, but I was talking to someone about this the other day. I was like, we were talking about multi-sig, and I was like, yeah, multi-sig's all right, but I don't like the fact that you stand out on chain. And then they flipped it the other way, and they were like, yeah, you do stand out more on chain, but you stand out in the way that someone can tell if you actually have multi-sig or not. So it makes you less of a target to anyone who is sophisticated.
That's a great point.
It is a great point. It was Black Coffee who said it, actually. And I was like, that's actually a very good point that I hadn't really thought of. I was so concentrated on, well, privacy first, and which as a general rule is important. But actually, someone comes to your house and like, wow, I'm going to put a gun to your head or set you alight or whatever. And you're like, no, it's in a multi-sig, I can't do it. If they're sophisticated, they'd be like, all right, let's see then.
Yeah, like just try and spend a transaction. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, I think for many years we've said, oh, multi-sig for most people isn't necessary. I'm starting to think like as the tools get better, is it starting to be with these attacks ramping up? And if it is, what's going to be best practice for people? Because this is only going to increase. There's only going to be more leaks. The more and more normie type people that come in are going to have louder mouths. They're going to be less concerned about their like on-chain footprint and their privacy and stuff like that. And so they are going to be hunted, whether that's by government or whether that's by criminals who want to tie you up in your house. It is a big concern. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it? Like, are you still in the camp where you think single sig, passphrase, that's enough for most? Or are you starting to think that as times change, maybe...
Yeah, definitely the latter. Multi-sig, I've said this many times, has become significantly easier to set up and to interact with. The problem remains in inheritance. Like, is multi-sig more secure? Yes, of course. Like, absolutely. Like, it's not even... Like, it's an exponential improvement, right?
Yeah.
But the bigger worry for me is, like, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, like, is my wife going to be able to coordinate a multi-sig wallet? Probably not. Can she grab 12 words and, I don't know, phone you or phone Zach or somebody like that to be like, okay, here's the situation? Yeah, of course she could. So then you're like, okay, well, do I leave them instructions? No, obviously not, because that's just basically a treasure map to all of your shit. So it's like, it's a difficult problem to solve. You could, I guess, entrust a lawyer with the instructions only to be unsealed, in your passing. But again, that has big trade-offs with it as well. So that remains to be kind of like an unsolved problem, specifically when we're talking about like self-sovereign multi-sig where you're doing it just yourself. Yeah, obviously, there's different services like Casa, Unchained, Liana, Anchor Watch, and all that sort of stuff, which kind of, well, they do solve the inheritance problem, but then they introduce other trade-offs like privacy risk and things like that. So again, there is no perfect solution. Well, I guess the only perfect solution is make your wife as good of a Bitcoiner as you are, such that if you get hit by a bus, she's just as competent. But we don't live in that world, and I don't think we ever will.
Do you know what I like as a bit of a middle ground? And I think we touched on this with me, you and Zach, was with Passport Prime, or it doesn't have to be Passport Prime, it could be something else, having an encrypted file with very, very good and detailed instructions and contact details for trusted individuals who could help if needed. And then they have a code or a password which is kept by a couple of trusted individuals that if anything happens, they can get access. Might be a nice middle ground, because it's like if someone gets hold of that device, good luck getting into it and doing anything. But if you did get hit by a bus, then your missus could go, right, here's my password. I'm going to put it into this device. Let's see what I do now. And there's very detailed instructions of how to do the multi-sig. And that's kind of a middle ground.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's, I don't know. I think it's a lot better than keeping it with a lawyer, personally.
Yeah, no, I think that's fairly easy to agree with. The other interesting stuff that we have like coming down the line is we'll go into details of it soon, but like all of the mini script side of things where you can like have maximum security where, you know, maybe only you know how it all works and where all the keys are. And then after 5 years, it degrades to a 2 of 2 and then a 1 of 3 or something like that. And all you need to say to your wife is like, okay, after X amount of years, all you need to know how to use is this device and, you know, you can move the funds. That could even just be fucking an app on a phone. You just open the app, that is the one key, and you just hit send. We're heading into that sort of world where that becomes possible. And obviously, for as long as you're alive, you're the competent Bitcoiner where you want the maximum security. You just make sure that that sort of stuff is kept up to date so that while you're alive and the funds, you know, are kind of, I don't know, active, that you benefit from all of that. But knowing if the worst was to happen, your spouse has just got to wait X amount of months, years, whatever, and then it becomes a very, very simple operation after that.
I love that because that basically solves all of the problems, because you can just have 12 words stamped into steel, hidden somewhere with a location that only they know, or only they and your kids know, or something like that. Even if one of them turned out to be a horrible, dirty little snake, they couldn't do anything anyway. It's got that time lapse. And as long as you're either sending a transaction or signing to say that you're still in control of that, it's the perfect setup. But I don't know how far away we are from that.
I don't think it's as far as you'd think. We've got like things like Anchor Watch and Liana Wallet that are at the forefront of that at the moment. And they're actually, considering it's the first one, they're actually pretty good. But, you know, clearly for this to work and to be widespread, we need widespread adoption of it in many, many different types of wallet software so that they can all interact with and operate with miniscript and things like that. So it's kind of useless if you're just pigeonholed into one piece of software. But, you know, we've got to start somewhere. So the future's looking promising in that regard.
Good.
Final piece of news. We're back to the US Department of Justice part of the show again. They have indicted 2 Russian citizens, Roman Ostapenko and Alexander Olyenik. Oh, and Anton Tarasov. So 3 of them. Charged them with money laundering and operating an unlicensed money transmitting business. There's those buzzwords again. Via custodial mixers, blender.io and sinbad.io. This actually happened back in December where they were arrested. And they're being charged with similar charges that we've seen before in many of these cases where they're accusing them of being money launderers and they're accusing them of operating unlicensed money transmitting businesses. So I think we've got is there 5 cases on the go now? All similar sort of accusations?
The big takeaway I would say with this is do not name your child Roman if they're going to be in this space, because they seem to be quite racist.
That's right. They don't like Romans.
They don't like Romans. If your name is Roman...
Tread carefully, Romans.
Mm-hmm.
Right, mate, shall we hit some boosts?
Definitely.
Late stage hodl with 10,000 sats. Thank you, sir. And he said, I forgot to boost, which is funny because he said that by using a boost. So thanks, late stage hodl.
Yeah, thank you, mate. W with 6,969 sats.
Nice.
This is quickly becoming my favourite show. Salute. Got a few questions asking one and two as someone with no CLI experience and hoping for relatively plug and play GUI option. Can you recommend a private high quality VPS that one could run Bitcoin node and or Start OS? 2, could you run a Monero node or even mine Monero on that same VPS? How many of the initial 1,000 how many of the initial 1,000 passport primes are still available? If you're able to say, these beauties feel like an early glimpse into cypherpunk and cypherpunk future. Just wait until they're made of 3D holographic glass. Ooh. Cheers. Good
well,
questions.
Thank you for your boost. And 3 good questions there. Can you recommend a private and high-quality VPS that could run a Bitcoin node and or Start OS? I feel like this is in your remit at the moment, mate. You've been messing around with this sort of stuff.
I have a little bit. I don't know if it's the best, if I'm honest, but we've been using Luna Node. I can pay in Bitcoin. I paid with Lightning, relatively private. I didn't have to give any information or details. I just had to pay for it. I don't know if it's expensive in comparison to other options. I think I pay like 40 quid a month or something like that. So it's not cheap to host all our bits and pieces, but it's been pretty good and pain-free. So I think that's relatively private. There's probably more private options somehow that you can do something clever, but I'm not aware of them. The plug and play GUI option, well, yeah, that is pretty simple. Can you recommend a that you can run a Bitcoin node on or Start OS? I would think that you could run Start OS on it. I'm not 100% sure. We run BTC Pay on it, and that is easy enough. So I think so.
Yeah, I think with that, specifically about StartOS, you'd need to find a VPS provider that will let you kind of because StartOS is like a whole operating system. Like you'd have to, it's like installing Debian or Ubuntu or something like that.
Yeah, you'd have to partition it and then...
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. Definitely not something I've done before, but I'm pretty sure the StartOS docs are pretty good. So I check their documentation. I would quickly push back just with a counter question, which obviously we're not going to get an answer to because W is not with us. But why do you want it in a VPS? Like if you're a digital nomad or something like that, fair enough. If it's for a business, okay, I understand that. But mostly outside of those two reasons, you kind of want it on your own hardware, really, which if you've got a fixed abode, obviously that's fairly easy to do and would be much, much cheaper as well in the long term.
Oh, yeah. It's certainly not cheap to run it. But yeah, maybe they're traveling.
Yeah.
Maybe they want it separate. Like a big reason I wanted to do it is just to separate things out, like personal and ungovernable misfit stuff. I want to keep separate.
Yeah, and you're running a business through it, right? So you want uptime, you want easy connectivity and all that sort of stuff. So it makes perfect sense for that use case. Would I run a Monero node and a Bitcoin node on the same VPS? Probably not, because you're going to be paying for a lot of storage and a lot of CPU power.
Yeah, again, you'd be better off doing that on your own hardware if that's possible. You can run a Monero node on a Start 9. So you could run everything that you're talking about on a Start 9 if you just had the hardware at home or any physical location. Although saying that, my Monero node went down on my Start 9 recently, and then I didn't get a chance to work out why, because then my Flint 2 router went down as well, and now I can't connect to anything or do anything since like a week ago. So can't tell you if it still currently works or not, but there was a little bit of a glitch.
Okay, interesting. And to answer the final question about how many of the early access Passport Primes are still available, don't have specific numbers, but it's not many. We've got a couple of big reseller orders in the works, and they're going to take up the vast majority of what's left. So if you're an individual wanting one, then probably act sooner rather than later, because they're not going to be around forever.
3D holographic lens glass stuff?
Oh, that's a question for Zach. I'm sure he's probably already thought about that one, but
I bet he has. Yeah,
I guess what they're talking about here is like Iron Man, where he's like got that thing in front of him and he's like interacting with it. Like, yeah, that would be very cool. But I don't think the next it's going to be in the next generation. Put it that way.
I can imagine you in the not too distant future doing all your smart home stuff from your 3D holographic glass, linked to your passport. It's got all your keys on there for security, and just everything's just happening around you. You've got Jarvis online. I can see that 5 years from now.
I want to try and find a smart lock that will let me in with Passport Prime with the NFC.
Ooh, that would be nice.
Yeah. Huxley boosted with 6,921 sats. Max said he'd only sell KYC sats on Strike. What's your thoughts on borrowing against them on Ledden to buy more on BISC or RoboSats? No tax, speculative attack on shitty fiat, and not fussed when you get rugged. Why would you not be fussed when you get rugged?
You
don't get that bit. Mate. Depends on the size of your KYC stack ratio, perhaps. I've got higher hopes for eCash, but Monero as a privacy tool sounds interesting. Where can I spend it, though? Is there a global acceptance and service like BTC Maps that helps you hunt places out? Ungovernable Misfits is a jam. Well, we've kind of covered the thoughts on borrowing. I think Ledden is, again, never used it, so I can't vouch for it properly, but it's been around for a long time and it seems to have a pretty good reputation. So I would definitely direct somebody there over something like Coinbase. But again, I'm not talking from experience there. Would I do it to basically what you suggested is going leverage long because you're doing it to get fiat to then buy more on BISC or RoboSats? Would I do that for that purpose? No, definitely not, because I don't know. I'm not a trader, and you've just heard the horror story that Mac talked about with one of his acquaintances. It doesn't take much for you to get quickly wiped out. In the words of Mr. Odell, just stay humble and just buy on BISC or RoboSats.
The best thing I think genuinely is just to sell. I also don't like this kind of leveraged idea. I just think it's dangerous. And then if you're doing it to avoid paying the taxes, firstly, I don't know how hot they are on it right now, realistically. And secondly, if you were to do it and you're in the UK, you've got like a certain allowance of, I don't know even how much it is, like 5,000 of cap gains that you can do without even informing them.
I think it's 3 now.
Oh, is it 3 now?
Cheers, Labour.
Yeah, cheers guys. But still 3,000 is like, that's your gain. So like, it depends how much you've got, but that sounds like quite a lot to me. And then on top of that, then you've got like 10% or something like that below maybe 50 grand or something. So, if you look at it like that and you go, if there's a 10% charge to break free from something and not be constantly worried about them on your tail and not constantly be worried about, fluctuations in the market and all that kind of stuff and potentially losing your stack, I think 10% is not a bad price to pay for that peace of mind. And then you just go and you buy no KYC and you're done and you're out free and clear. Do
you want to take the Monero side of things as well about the service, like a BTC map alternative?
Oh yeah, so there's coin cards if you want to like spend.
And Cake Wallet, right?
You can do it directly through Cake, or you can do coin cards, and you can buy all sorts of vouchers and bits and pieces. So either one of those is an option, and you can buy a lot of stuff through there. So it is pretty good. And then BTC, it's not BTC Maps exactly, but there's one I think it's called Monerica or something like that, which will give you like a list of all the different online retailers and people who accept it, or most of them at least. But that might be a better question for the Monero monthly. So if I remember, I'll answer it properly when I've got Seth next to me.
Sounds good.
Frito 2x, 5,000 sats, 500 sats, another 5,000 sats, another 500 sats, and another 5,000 sats with no message. But
so,
thank you.
Yeah, I was confused by this, but when Jordan's typed these up for us or imported them, the actual boosts are with the word sats at the end. So that would be 5,500 and 500. And then I think there are 2 messages, but the messages confusingly are the number 5,000 twice. So Frito, if you either tell us that Jordan's a retard or please enlighten us. Sure. But thank you for your boost nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you, mate. We appreciate you.
Chad F, 3,333 sats. Max set up a Start9 node with LND and run Albi Hub on it. You cunt.
Fair enough. Do you know what? I've tried, mate. All I can say is I cannot access anything because of this fucking router, because I thought I was going to be all cool and have a router level VPN set up, and I thought, I'm a fucking cypherpunk, I can do this shit. And the truth is, I can always do this shit for a short amount of time, and then one day I go to use it after changing nothing, and everything's fucked. And so these are the reasons that I don't trust my own home setup for ungovernable misfits and the things that like really matter day to day, because it needs to work.
Indeed. Another one from Chad. Okay, so Max did set up an Albi Hub on a node. Honestly, us PC 2.0 guys don't worry too much about the privacy thing when it comes to Lightning because we do all of this out in the open. Anyways, I take back the see you next Tuesday statement from earlier. I pause the show when I fire these off, so sometimes I send one and my question gets answered seconds later. But that's the ungovernable misfits way after all. And then a final one from Chad Farrow with 333 sats, and he said he's quoting us saying the management with a laughing face. So I think he likes that he likes that Jordan's name for himself.
I set up an Albi Hub a couple of days ago, by the way, on the same Luna node and did all of that sort of stuff. So I am another step closer.
Nice.
Unpronounceable cunt. with 1,000 sats. I have replaced all my BTC with XMR, ... because BTC is doomed to fail. And for your information, drinking is harmful, but a necessary evil to keep me sane. Okay, unpronounceable cunt. I don't fully endorse your move there.
Agreed.
Just maybe be a little bit careful if you care at all about savings, but you do what you want. It's just not quite for me. The drinking, yeah, I totally get that. If it keeps you level and sane, then all is good and enjoy.
FOMO Chronic, 1001 sats with a lot of punctuation marks. I have no idea what that is.
Brackets, dot, brackets, dot.
Oh, hang
backwards,
on.
brackets, dot. I feel like it's some sort of, I can see what it is, you dirty, dirty boy.
That's the conclusion that I came to also.
Yeah. That's a decent rack and a nice skinny little waist and some nice hips.
It's a punctuation version of the female side of our species, shall we say.
That is a hash slut right there.
Thank you for the boost.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Pies with 1,000 sats. Jordan is the fucking man. Basically, foundation of the show. You two brutish, he probably means British. You two brutish cunts better show that man some respect. Swearing, 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 gun, 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 gun. America is shit and Canada is shit, but England is really amazing. I was done with the England equals poop emojis, but this one was for Jordan. Okay, fair enough. All I'll say is get to know him a little bit better, and he's very frustrating, man. Very, very annoying, Jordan. 1,000 sats. I used to drink a lot years ago when I was sober for a while and not sleeping much. So then I started smoking a ton of weed. But recently I cut down a lot to try to save my lungs. There's nothing wrong with munchies. You just need to stock up on healthy snacks like beef jerky, trail mix, fruits, weed, and mushrooms are the key to sanity and prosperity of the soul. It's not a bad point, actually. When I used to properly train before kids and misses and everything, I used to smoke weed every night and I just had really healthy food. So I would always be like putting on muscle because I was eating so much. So he's got a point. 420 sats. I recently started to re-embrace English football and my beloved Arsenal for the first time since COVID. I had completely stopped watching because of what cunts all pro sports organisations were regarding COVID and vaccines. But used to's disrespect of Jordan has me questioning myself. An American badass like our boy John would never disrespect such a hardworking man like Jordan. Fucking Brits.
You don't see what goes on in the background, Pies.
He's so annoying.
He abuses us.
Do you know what? I don't mind the abuse. It's like he gets the whip out and he's abusive. Like, fucking, you gotta do better. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You fucking shit. All that. You kind of get used to it. But it's the whinging that gets me. You know what I mean? When he's like,
just get tiresome.
Yeah, it's just, we don't need all that. Finally, from this part of the pies boost section, yo, what's wrong with eating crayons? That's how I get my daily fruit and vitamins. More health advice from pies next time round.
The next boost is from Snicktoshi, 420 sats. Thanks, guys. Great rip. Let me know if you want to talk about Seed Hammer 2 in detail. Godspeed. So Snicktoshi, for those that don't know, is a member of the team. So nice to know that you listen, mate. Hope you're well.
Well, Snicktoshi, if you can reach out to me, two things. One, I really want to try one of these things. I know they're not quite released yet, but I'd love to know when and potentially test it. So if you could let me know, that'd be cool. And then also, we would love to hear from you. So yeah, maybe we can do a pod, or maybe we can do like one of those little mini shows. You know, we talked about that a while ago, didn't we? Like having a little section where we talk to someone about a certain thing, like a very specific thing, and then we can talk about that.
Yeah.
That could be cool. So maybe that will be the first one. Thank you, Snicktoshi. B, Lightning Bolt, 400 sats. Salute, 400 sats.
Wartime, 333 sats. For the record, BTC Pay Server has had page earn for years. Anyone with a BTC Pay Server should turn it on. I agree. I co-sign that. Another boost with 333 sats. I got a bunch of the original Jades, Blockstream Jades that is, for $20 each. The new ones look good and the old ones sucked. Another 333 sats, let's fucking go, with a flame emoji. And finally, another 333 sats. Thank you for your boosts, Wartime.
Thank you. Nostagang, 100 sats. I think you are corrupting my purest Bitcoin soul. For I desire fucking hell. For I desire Monero deep inside my rabbit hole. Fucking hell. Okay, mate. Whatever floats your boat.
Indeed. And thank some notable streamers as well. Pleb2 Polymath, Schnitzel, Base Potato, and Smith. Thank you for your streaming sats. I know you didn't necessarily send a boost in, but just know that when I open my Zeus and I see 1 sat, 1 sat, 2 sat, 2 sat coming in, it makes me smile. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to all of you streamers, and thank you to the boosters. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, quick note from the management as well, by the way. Jordan wanted me to mention that XMR Chat have added a way to tip with Bitcoin as well. I think they do a swap through Trocador.
Okay.
So there you go, Jordan. Hope you're happy.
I like that. It's so nice and clean and simple. I really like XMR Chat. So if people can pay in sats as well, that would be amazing.
Indeed. On to updates and releases. We alluded to this one earlier. Anchor Watch have launched in the US for customers holding between $250,000 and $100 million in Bitcoin. So this might be for you, Max.
Oh, fucking hell.
So Anchor Watch is a pioneering insurance provider specializing in collaborative Bitcoin custody. It combines the advanced security features of the Trident Vault with insurance from Lloyd's of London. So the reason I mention this is clearly it's not aimed at the plebs because it's like a regulated regulated infrastructure.
And you've got to have at least £250,000.
Yes, dollars to be specific.
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah.
you peasant.
Yes, yeah, this is not for you paupers. But the reason I raise it up is twofold. Number one, they are leveraging Miniscript, which we were talking about earlier, which is, enabling all this cool stuff. And it's the first fully insured one as well. So if you throw $50 million of Bitcoin in here and something happens to it, you are going to get the equivalent. I don't know whether they pay out in Bitcoin or in dollars. I've not looked into
I actually think it is Bitcoin.
Interesting. Okay, well, that makes it even more compelling then. So it's I raise it just because it's a very new and novel thing to have that fully insured thing. We've never seen anything like that before, and I guess that is made possible because of the security that's being offered by the Miniscript implementation here, where they do the time locked recovery paths and things like that as well. So very cool. I have met Rob from Anchor Watch before. Pretty cool guy. So wish him well with this one. And if you are a whale listening to this and you live in the US, maybe might be for you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And as much as we dislike banks, Lloyd's of London insurance is not like a fuck around rinky dink operation. That's pretty serious. And so if someone is into that kind of thing, that sounds like they've set it up properly.
Indeed. Yeah, they'd never have got that level of cover if they weren't passing many audits on security, I presume.
Yeah.
CoinSwap, this has been dragged out of the depths. Version 0.1.0, first public beta release. We have undoubtedly talked about CoinSwap when it first got proposed, probably at least a couple of years ago now by Chris Belcher, where it's essentially it's like a privacy tool on Bitcoin that enables decentralized atomic swaps that give you privacy on the Bitcoin network. Mm-hmm. The TLDR here is that, and again, this is very much a high level TLDR, is that you're essentially swapping coins with somebody else in a trustless manner. Now, that can be a good thing because you're essentially swapping your coin history with somebody else. So if you were being targeted on chain, you can never tell that these coin swaps have taken place. So if somebody was following you, you'd essentially be throwing them off your track, so to speak, in terms of following your Bitcoin addresses and your on-chain activity. But if you swap with the wrong person, then you could be picking up somebody else's, questionable history and, maybe inviting others to then track your history. So I've always been very conflicted on this one. It's a very strange concept. Don't get me wrong, from an engineering perspective, it's like it's mental that they can achieve this where you're just like swapping coins, but do it in a way that it's fully trustless. But yeah, that whole history piece where you don't know who you're kind of swapping with, it just makes me a little bit uneasy. There's a quick quote here from somebody on Twitter, I guess, that's involved in the project, that says, "What is a coin swap, you might ask? Let's say you and I swap a UTXO. We each lock our output in a special contract with cryptographic proofs. We exchange secrets that allow us to claim each other's coins. Either we successfully swap or we both get our original coins back." So it's atomic in nature. You've probably heard us talk about atomic swaps before. So it's similar in nature to how those work. When we swap UTXOs, there's no direct on-chain link between our transactions. While someone could see two swaps happened, they can't definitively connect my history to your new coins or vice versa, breaking the transaction trail and giving each participant fresh coins. Well, that seems to go against what I just said about swapping histories, doesn't it? So I'm wondering whether there's been some developments to this in recent years that I've clearly missed. But the way that that's worded seems to go against what I just said, right? They can't definitively connect my history to your new coins or vice versa. Interesting.
Or does it? Is it saying that because it's an atomic swap, you can't see on chain that there's actually been a swap, which means that they don't know that there's been the change? I don't know. I'm not sure about how that's worded, but I don't know how you would do it so that there is no history for either.
Yeah, because all coins have a history, right? That's just the way the UTXO model works.
Yeah, and the only way you could sort of start fresh was if you went through Whirlpool and you had a pretty good sort of restart in a way. But this seems, I don't know. Well, if anyone is listening, or Chris, you're listening, and do you think actually you could shed some light on this, we'd love to know. But if it is just a swap service, I have to say, like, for me, it's not very appealing because, you know, say you have some KYC history and you want to break away from that, and then you end up actually behind bars because some fucking retard at Chain Analysis has now decided that actually you were funding an operation that you weren't. I wouldn't take that swap, and you are just rolling the dice in that scenario. I can think of better ways. If it is set up like that, I can think of better ways to do it, but any development on privacy for me is good. And if maybe your KYC information isn't linked, then maybe it's not the worst thing. Like if you've made a transaction to someone like a semi-trusted party, but then you don't want them to see what's happening going forward, then maybe there could be an argument for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems in my head to be a tool that could be complementary as like a post-mix tool, maybe. You're swapping coins that have had some or all deterministic links broken, and then swapping those with equal amounts outputs. You know what I mean? So I've got like a 5 million set output, and I swap that with somebody else's post-mix output, such that you know that you're not inheriting the history, but you're also providing further obfuscation. So let's say I only did one mix, and I could be one of 5 people, or my output could be one of 5 people. And then I did a coin swap with somebody else from a completely different set of mixes. That seems like it would be quite useful and quite additive. But yeah, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, the public beta release is live only on testnet. So it's not even on mainnet yet. Next up, found a new news outlet, lightning.news. As the name suggests, this is a Lightning-only focused news outlet where you will get news about Lightning stuff. Like the way the site's formatted, yeah, it seems pretty cool. So if you love managing channels and having headaches, this could be for you. It's definitely going to be a bookmark for me. It's nice to have a kind of isolated one just for Lightning so that I can go and keep up to date with just that sort of stuff rather than, let's say, having to wade through all of No Bullshit Bitcoin, which is also excellent, by the way, and provides the framework for everything that we talk about on the show. Next one, this is very exciting. dojobay.pw. That is dojobay, bay.pw. This is a new website that aims to provide access to those who do not have access to their own dojo. So it's basically an index of community members that have their own dojo to back Ashigaru wallet. and basically publicizes the information such that if you want to get started with Ashigaru, which mandates the fact that you have to connect to a node that you specify, and you don't have one of those nodes, a dojo in this case, then you're not kind of locked out of that ecosystem. You can come over to dojobay.pw and choose from any of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 currently. Jordan's one of them by the look of it.
Yeah, Max Tannehill's one of them. You got Wandering King. There's a few names there where I'm like, okay, they're pretty trusted people. I mean, obviously there's always a trade-off, but it's a big step up from what we had with Samurai, which is just like one server, and you could connect to it without running your own dojo, which was useful for a lot of people because not everyone in the world can run their own node. But this is a big step up, and I really hope that this helps people actually start to use Ashigaru because it's a brilliant wallet. Having the ability here, you can go on mainnet or testnet. You might not want to go straight onto mainnet. You want to have a play around. They got some testnet ones. Personally, on that list, Jordan, obviously terrible guy, but I certainly trust him. Same as Max Tannehill and Wandering King as well. There's some good people on there.
Yeah, but just know that if you do that you are sharing your entire transaction history and any future transactions that take place within that very same wallet with the operator of that node. So there is a significant privacy trade-off. If you're fine with that, or if you just want to do some testing or whatnot with a throwaway wallet, dojobay.pw. Very exciting project.
Very exciting. Yeah. Trade-offs for sure, but it is, like I say, it's a big step up, and I don't think it should be discounted how important this is. Anyone who's thinking of having a play, certainly even if it's just on testnet, just to try the wallet out, I would suggest it because it's really, really slick.
Yeah, quick PSA, testnet4.info is a testnet for faucet where you can go if you're an avid tester of wallets, that you can go and get some testnet 4 coined, which have been fairly difficult to get hold of until now. So testnet4.info. They do require some authentication, but it can just be like a GitHub or a Twitter or Discord account where you'll use an OAuth basically, and that's the way that they prevent people kind of abusing this and just milking all the coins out of it. Bitcoin Core version 28.1 has now been released, and it contains, it's the first maintenance release for version 28. It includes several bug fixes, performance improvements, and updated translations. So nothing major to write home about here. If you are a turbo nerd, then feel free to click on the link and see all of the terminology that makes no sense to me whatsoever, and you might be able to stay up to date. Spectre Desktop version 2.1.1 has been released. They have added the ability to expose the internal node to local host. So there's HWI upgrades, which is how you would interact with hardware wallets that you need to physically plug into the machine running Spectre Desktop. Things like Trezor, Ledger, etc. Some bug fixes, compatibility with Bitcoin Core version 28, add wallet export to Jade via QR code, and some other performance optimizations as well.
Have you used Spectre Desktop at all in the last sort of however many years?
No, purely because I just love Sparrow. Occasionally head back over to Spectre Desktop if somebody asks me a question about it, say they're a Passport user and they use Spectre. Occasionally we'll get questions around, some implementation. I'll kind of update it and check it out. But I just see no reason to move away from Sparrow. I just prefer the way it's laid out, the functionality. Yeah, I just prefer it.
Completely agree. Because I hadn't used it for 3-4 years or something like that. I just wondered if it's changed at all, really.
No. Blue Wallet version 7.0.7 has been released. New features, you can import an XPub as a ZPub or a YPub. That could be useful for Samurai users, actually, or ex-Samurai users. Mm-hmm. They have updated their wallet export screen, and they now display Lightning details in the invoice view. They've added the HKD fiat terminology. Is that the Hong Kong dollar?
Maybe.
It must be, yeah. And then there's loads of different bug fixes as well. What have we got here? Bitcoin Keeper version 1.3.3 been released. They've redesigned the Electrum server management. They've added Keystone as a remote signer. They've added PDF export option for individual wallet configuration files. And then there's lots of UI improvements and bug fixes. Nunchuk Android version 1.9.59 and iOS 1.9.68 been released. This includes Taproot multisig wallets, which we covered off in much more detail last time, a revamped add key flow, an update to Honey Badger Premier, which is one of their paid tiers, and as always, some bug fixes and improvements. On to the Nostr shill part of the show. NStart, a Nostr onboarding wizard, has been released. This is actually pretty cool. This is like as the name suggests, it aims to simplify onboarding for new users to the Nostr protocol with an easy-to-use wizard that provides helpful hints about the protocol and exclusive features such as the multi-signer bunker. Mm-hmm. If you want to check that out, all you need to do is head to start.njump.me and then you'll be taken through the wizard, which is very beautiful, very well designed. So if you're trying to Nostr pill somebody, that might be a good place to start. Amethyst, my favorite Nostr client, version 0.9.4.3 has been released. It includes encrypted media within your DMs, GIFs. You'll be pleased to hear that one, Max. You can now do your GIFs in Amethyst.
That was one of my major problems with Nostr. I was like, where the fuck are my GIFs? Because I can't actually communicate without them.
Problem solved.
Yeah, I remember I spoke to Self-Bank about it and he was like, oh yeah, all you got to do is like just have this separate Giphy app and then you can put, I was like, that's too much for me. But well done.
It's all in Amethyst now. And you can also do custom emojis as well.
Very nice.
Last one, Mostro version 0.13.0. This is the Lightning Network-based peer-to-peer exchange that uses communication over the Nostr protocol. They've had an update that's called Keys Management Implementation. We have a lot of improvements, and probably one of the most important is the final design of keys management. Keys management is a way clients rotate keys for every trade, adding another privacy layer to the gift wrap previous implementation. So again, yeah, we kind of touch on this every couple of months. Again, I think it's still not ready for the prime time, but it's a project that I like to keep tabs on because it ticks all of my boxes. Lightning Network, Nostr, peer-to-peer. So I really, really want to see this one succeed. So yeah, feel free to check it out and provide some feedback. Okay, mate. That brings me to the end of the list. No separate questions section this time because the only ones we had came in from boosts and we've already covered those off. But did I miss anything? You got any other AOB for us?
I don't think so, mate. I think we covered everything there. Some good stuff. It was a bit more positive this time round, I think. We had loads of exciting updates.
Well, speaking of positive, I'm hoping that the next time we talk, Ross is a free man.
Me too. I shall keep my fingers crossed and my toes crossed and my balls crossed for him.
All right. Have a good couple of weeks, mate. I will speak to you then.
All right, mate. Speak soon.
Cheers.